Welcome once again to Quest Givers. I'm the DMG and this is my friend DM Scotty, and in this video we are going to be talking about how to structure a scene.
If you're looking for adventure, excitement, thrills, and a dice-rolling good time, sit back and enjoy the next few minutes with Quest Givers DM Scotty and DMG. They're taking you on an epic journey through the role-playing experience every Friday. Learn the ways of the Game Master, the Dungeon Master, and delve into the minds of the players. Grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
Make sure to sign up for our mailing list because we have lots of goodies that we send out for the mailing list. You also get informed when the modules are out and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely check out questgivers.com and sign up for that mailing list.
You can also find all our modules on there as well. So this video about structure of a scene. So in the last video we talked about scenes and transitions, and the previous one we talked about time as a motivator. So this is all, you can tell in this month everything's working towards the theme of time and how it all works in your games. And of course that's tied into our module as well, which has a very definite time element in it, Messenger in the Woods. So the structure of a scene, so there are three basic components of beginning, middle, and end of a scene, and we define that as setting the scene is the first part of it, and then the second part is the struggle, and the third part is the mishap. So Scotty, now in your games, how do you set the scene?
You want to, when the players enter the location, you kind of want to work from what they'll notice first, the basics of the location, and then kind of work down to the more interesting aspects of that. And that way you kind of build a scene, you build the scene in their mind, right? You build kind of the setup. So what they're facing, right? It's what they're facing. And that's where all the other action can take place in the kind of tableau that you set up, right? And that's where we move on to the next part.
The important part of when you're setting the scene is you're laying down little tidbits that become goals for the characters. So the characters, the players through the characters are going to say, okay, you've described certain things and this is what we want to do. So you want to give them an opportunity to tell you what they want to do. They're kind of like, I want to get that chest, I want to fight that goblin, I want to see what's behind that door. So if you haven't mentioned the chest, the goblin, and the door, they won't know that these things exist. So you need to tell them that, and then they will formulate their own goals. So once they formulated a goal, that leads us into the struggle. So the struggle is you as the GM are going to put little problems between them and their goal. So we'll use the chest and the door and the goblin as an example again. One player says, I want to go through the door. The other player says, I want to fight the goblin. And the other guy says, well, I want to see what's in that chest. The goblin protects the chest, and the guy going through the door, he opens the door and there's another 5 goblins behind the door, right? So he was trying to escape. He's now being stopped by 5 goblins. What you've done is you've put a problem in the way, and that's where all the tension and the drama comes from. Because if you keep giving the players everything that they want without any kind of problem happening for them, it's quickly going to be boring. And that's not what you want.
Certain things may be more difficult than they first appear, which can often be the case, especially in like kind of magical worlds or that kind of thing. There may be something like, an environmental hazard that you didn't notice at first. Maybe there's a super slick slime or something on the floor that you didn't notice, and suddenly you're sliding around the room. You're trying to fight this goblin, and maybe the goblin has something that will help him with the slime, like maybe magic boots or something, or he's used to it, and so he's not hindered, but you are, and you're sliding around and falling down and that kind of thing. So yeah, you can always add that kind of interesting stuff to the scene, and it doesn't have to be right away. You can add as a battle progresses or a situation progresses, you can start adding those mishaps that happen that give it flavor, you know, because like Gareth says, if they just easily get everything, it's not interesting. But if the players are like, oh, remember that time that we, you know, that suddenly came out and we had to deal with this and that while they were, you know, attacking us and all this, that was so cool. So that's the kind of, it's kind of like the spice, you know, that making it harder for them actually, or more, it makes it more interesting. It seems like that the players, you know, would be frustrated, but you know, there's between the frustration and kind of adding the spice and making it interesting. So I think as a DM GM, you'll start to learn like that. You know, how much of that mishap to add, because you can add too much, right? If you just keep adding too much, it really can get frustrating. But if you don't add enough, it's not interesting. Think about how you're going to add the mishaps and not just keep piling on, you know, mishaps. And you know, I know some DMs get frustrated about the players using spells to circumvent stuff, right? Particularly mishaps. And I think that's interesting because it's giving the players you know, agency. You're not defeating their agency by saying, oh, that doesn't work or whatever. There's anti-magic this, you know. I like to let the players, you know, if they use spells to get past stuff, let them do it. You know, don't hinder that, because players will quickly get frustrated if you start like nerfing their abilities essentially to, oh, I want my mishap to be this way, and you know, they're circumventing it, so I feel cheated. Well, don't feel that. You know, we're on the player's side, right? You're on the player's side, but you want to make it interesting, and you've already made it interesting. If they're using a spell to get past something, they're using up a resource, and they're thinking of a creative way to get past something. So you know, don't stop that. Don't try to put the kibosh on a player that's you know, getting past a mishap.
Think of it more like a pebble in their shoe. You know, that's what you are as the DM. You're that constant pebble in their shoe. You're not a giant concrete block that's their foot is stuck in. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. So you know, when you're setting up the struggle, you know, it's not a struggle that they will not be able to overcome. You know, they may be able to, it may be a difficult one, it may be an easy one. It doesn't matter what the level of the struggle is, just that there is one. You know, they've got to get through the door and the door is locked. You know, that's the struggle. You've set up the scene, there's a door, they go to the door and the door doesn't open because it's locked. So now the thief has to pick the lock, or the guy has to cast the spell. You're just using up their resources. You know, that's what the struggle is really for, as you touched on. You're basically, as the DM, are just eroding their resources as players. Because if the players have everything that they want and they're at maximum all the time, there's no threat to them. You know, they're not, you know, and you can't have heroes that aren't under threat. They need to be under threat all the time. But not under threat as in they've got a gun to their head the whole time. It's like, you know, they've heard about a guy with a gun who's coming to hold it to their head. That's one, you know, that's one thing. So, you know, what Scotty has said is, you know, that vitally important that you actually have the struggle, and that you know, you think of it in along the lines of, you know, small. You can do big, but most of the time do small. You know, and then when you get to the mishap, again, mishaps don't need to be big mishaps all the time. Like we talk about, you know, the goblin comes in, you don't just make him a level 20 wizard who can just, you know, 80 d6 fireball on, you know, oh, what was the point? You know, that's a ridiculous mishap. But the mishap is, you know, a classic one that happens mechanically is when a lot of people include a botch in the game. So if you roll a 1, something bad happens. So that's a mechanical mishap in the game. You know, whereas obviously the opposite of that is the crit. So the crit is great for the players, but you've got to have that balance. And, you know, Scotty's experienced this in 7D system where you actually get to choose when you fail spectacularly, and that gives you points. So I actually built that into the mechanism of the game. It's like you choose something really bad, it's going to happen to you. So I rarely do anything really bad, but the player actually makes a choice. They use their own agency to get more of the things that they need in future. So they're trying to build up their resources by making bad things happen. And as you say, when people are using magic spells, part of the skill of being a good GM is it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter, because if they're using a lot of their spells, that's fine. You know, you don't need to put anti-magic, or you just got to think of a way to basically make it so that they're just not going to use it all the time. It's like people who use teleport spells. I just teleport to here, I just teleport to here, I just teleport to here. That's fine. But then they're going to miss certain things. Like if you're just teleporting through the dungeon, make a dungeon that's all secret passages. They're going to miss it. It's just a long corridor. Yeah, you teleport to there, so what? They miss out on, like, you know, a whole bunch of things. But then the other guys who can't teleport find these things, and then they go, oh, so now they want to teleport back, but now they've split the party. You've slapped down a portcullis and they're in a room with a basilisk. Yeah, oops, I shouldn't have teleported away from the rest of the party, because that's splitting the party. You can split the party in a room or in, you know, across a corridor. There's plenty of things you can do. So you as the GM, don't just spring that all the time, but use those little traps to teach them a lesson. Don't just keep using the same spell over and over and over again. You know, you want that sort of a bit of a smackdown. I'm in charge of this world. You can control that through the mishap that actually happens in the game. That portcullis coming down or splitting the party is the mishap of the scene.
Yeah, because you totally have control of that, right? I mean, you're God, right? You're God in this world, so you have control over how those mishaps work. And you know, like Gareth was saying with the game mishap, right? Which is if you roll a fumble or, you know, a fail, an automatic fail. You know, almost all games have those. And you know, it doesn't have to be something horrible happens to the character. I find it's more fun if it's something interesting, if it puts them in more of a predicament that they have to make interesting choices for, than opposed to you just do damage or something like that. Sometimes, you know, as a DM, you kind of get stuck in something, and you can't think of, you know, maybe the fumble, what might happen or something. They do have charts and that kind of thing. I don't like to use those. I like to kind of do it depending on the situation, as opposed to rolling on a chart. Another game that kind of does this mechanically is Dungeon World, the Apocalypse World engine system, right? There's kind of three states of the dice, right? So you might get a total success, a partial success, which is you get something you want and the DM gets something they want, and then a fail. Okay, so oftentimes the most result you'll get is a partial success. So you're often having to think of things to make their role more interesting. So, you know, they may have hit the creature and did some damage, but now they're in a worse position, or the creature now has them pinned against the wall or something like that. So, you know, it's like that's kind of mechanically built in the game. I think most DMs and GMs start to naturally do this. They start to naturally put this in the game.
And I pick up on a point that you said, you don't just need to do damage, you can do something interesting. So, you know, don't do damage, do interesting. Or don't do damage, do irritation. You know, if you're someone who never irritates the players, do it every once in a while. You know, it's like every time they hit the goblin gets angry and he goes into a rage. Now, normally goblins may not have access to that ability in the game or whatever, but suddenly just, right, this goblin, that's it, I've had enough of defending this dungeon. I'm always being attacked by these damn adventurers. You know, I had my chest of gold here. They're kind of trying to steal my shit. I didn't do anything to these people. You know, you've created a really interesting mishap that, you know, these people didn't expect to be fighting a raging goblin, but now you can give him extra abilities. Just, you know, on the fly, it's like he now does double damage on every hit, or he moves a lot faster, so he gets 2 attacks now instead of 1. You know, but he's easier to hit, so his armor class drops down, but he has double attacks. Again, depending on what game you are playing, you can manipulate the rules. Everyone who fights against him has disadvantage. There's just so many different things you can just throw in mechanically, just by making a description of that, throwing in that mishap. And that's, where this, as you play more and more and more games, as you play with different people, you'll start to learn who likes what, who doesn't like what, and you can then massage and play with that. But the skill as the DM is beginning to recognize when you should drop these things in, so that you're enhancing the fun of the game, really, for everyone who's playing. Thank you very much for joining us for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about transitions and how you structure transitions. Of course, thank you for everyone who supported us by buying modules on our website, questgivers.com. That helps to support the making of these videos, which we'll see you in the next one.
Hope to see you again. See you next time.